The gavel had not even fallen, but the words hit like bullets. Suspended. Detective Aubrielle Hayes stood frozen in the crowded hearing room of the NYPD's One Police Plaza, her badge and service weapon already on the table in front of Captain Harlan. Emery Vance watched from the back row, her jaw tight, remembering every heated argument they had during the Martinez case, where Aubrielle had pushed aggressive tactics, ignoring protocols, while Emery had tried to hold the line for the sake of procedure and the law. Now here was the woman she had once clashed with so fiercely, facing the end of everything she worked for. And something in Emery twisted, not with satisfaction, but with an unexpected urge to step in despite the direct orders from above to let internal affairs handle it alone. The room was thick with tension, the air heavy with the scent of stale coffee and sweat. Aubrielle felt her chest tighten as the captain read the formal suspension notice citing evidence tampering allegations that she knew were false. Someone had planted the doubt to cover the real issues in the department. 10 years on the force reduced to this moment, her hands clenching at her sides as colleagues who once trusted her now avoided her eyes. The Martinez raid had gone wrong when her decision to move on the warehouse based on a shaky informant led to a civilian caught in crossfire, but Aubrielle had not tampered with anything. She had fought for the truth while others covered tracks. Her mind raced to her family in Queens, her conservative parents who already questioned her single life and late nights at work. If they learned the full story, the suspension would be nothing compared to their disappointment in who she really was, the woman who had never brought home a man because her heart had always pulled toward women like the one standing across the room now. Emery could not sit still any longer. The captain had explicitly told the entire unit to stay clear of Aubrielle during the investigation, no contact, no support, to avoid any appearance of bias. But as the hearing concluded and Aubrielle gathered her things with trembling hands, Emery stood up, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. "This is wrong, and you know it, Captain," she said, her voice steady but laced with the fire that had defined their past confrontations. "Aubrielle did not tamper with anything. I was there. The evidence does not add up." The room fell silent, all eyes on her. The captain's face reddened. "Vance, stand down. This is not your call." But Emery did not back down. She walked forward, placing herself between the board and Aubrielle. "I am not letting this happen without a fight." Hours later, in the pouring rain, Emery found herself driving to Aubrielle's apartment in Brooklyn despite the risk to her own spotless record. Her mind replayed the Martinez case, the way Aubrielle had stood up in the briefing room arguing that waiting for warrants would cost lives, while Emery had countered that bending rules would cost the case and their credibility. They had been rivals ever since, sharp words in hallways, cold stares in the bullpen. Emery had always seen Aubrielle as reckless, a threat to the badge she loved, yet tonight, after seeing the devastation in those eyes, Emery felt a pull she could not name, a protectiveness mixed with something warmer, something she had pushed down for years in a department where being a woman was hard enough, and being anything more was career suicide. She parked and sat for a moment, gripping the wheel. Her family back in Ohio would never understand this choice. Her mother, who still sent articles about settling down with a nice man, but Emery could not walk away. She knocked 3 times, her heart pounding. When Aubrielle opened the door, her eyes red from unshed tears, Emery stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. "We need to talk. I know you are innocent and I am not walking away." Aubrielle stared at her for a long moment, the rain dripping from Emery's jacket onto the floor. "Why are you here, Vance, after everything we said to each other in that case?" Emery closed the door behind her. "Because I saw the real tampering in the logs. Someone in the department is covering for the lieutenant who got away, and you were set up to take the fall." Aubrielle sank onto the couch, her head in her hands, the weight of the day crashing down. "My family will hear about this by morning. They already think I am throwing my life away by staying in this job if they knew the rest." Emery sat across from her, the space between them charged with years of rivalry now shifting into alliance. "Tell me everything and we will figure this out together, even if it means I lose my badge too." The conversation stretched late into the night, Aubrielle recounting every detail of the raid, the tip that felt off, the pressure from above to close the case fast, Emery listening without interruption, her own internal conflict growing. She had always followed the rules to prove she belonged in a male-dominated world, yet here she was risking it all for the woman she once reported. As Aubrielle spoke of the fear of losing not just her job, but her identity, the hidden part of herself she had never shared with anyone at work, Emery felt her walls crack. By the time they parted with a plan to meet again secretly the next day, Emery knew she had crossed a line. There was no going back, and the price would be high, but for the first time it felt worth it. Aubrielle woke the next morning to the buzzing of her phone, her mother's number flashing on the screen, the call she had dreaded. She let it go to voicemail knowing the message would be laced with disappointment and questions about why she could not just find a stable desk job and a husband like her sister. The suspension notice sat on her kitchen table, a stark reminder of how quickly everything could unravel. She dressed in plain clothes, no badge, no gun, feeling naked without them, and drove to the small coffee shop on the edge of Brooklyn where Emery had suggested they meet away from prying eyes. Her mind raced with doubts. Was she dragging Emery into this for nothing? Or was this the only way to clear her name, and maybe understand the strange pull she felt toward the woman who had once been her enemy? Emery arrived first, sitting in a back booth, her hands wrapped around a black coffee, her face drawn from a sleepless night. When Aubrielle slid into the seat opposite her, the tension from their rivalry still lingered, but something new softened it. "I pulled some old case files last night," Emery said quietly, keeping her voice low. The tampering points to Sergeant Klein in narcotics. He had motive to protect his informant in the Martinez crew. Aubrielle leaned in, her knee brushing Emery's under the table, sending an unexpected spark through her. "That explains the setup, but why risk your career for me after I called you out in front of the whole unit for being too by the book?" Emery met her gaze. "Because I was wrong about some things in that case. You saw the urgency I missed, and now I see you were set up because you got too close to the truth." Their conversation deepened as they pieced together timelines, Aubrielle sharing how the civilian death still haunted her nights, even though the inquiry cleared her of intent. But the department needed a scapegoat. As hours passed, the coffee turned to sandwiches. The talk shifted from the case to personal ground. Aubrielle spoke of growing up in a strict Puerto Rican household where any deviation from the expected path brought shame, her parents pushing her to marry and have kids while she hid late-night drives to clear her head from the weight of unspoken desires. Emery listened, her own story spilling out, the Midwest upbringing where her father, a retired cop, drilled duty above all, and her mother still asked when she would bring home a boyfriend. "I have never told anyone at the precinct," Emery admitted, "but I have always known I was different, and the force is not kind to different." The admission hung between them, a bridge over their past conflicts. Aubrielle reached across the table, her fingers grazing Emery's for a brief moment. "I never thought you would understand, but here we are both risking everything." Emery did not pull away, the touch lingering longer than necessary, sending warmth through her chest. They left the shop with a plan to check Klein's old reports at a public library terminal, avoiding department systems. As they walked the rain-slick streets side by side, Aubrielle felt the first crack in her isolation, the rivalry melting into respect, and something deeper, a quiet attraction that scared her as much as it steadied her. Emery glanced at her, the same conflict playing across her face. "We cannot get caught together, or they will use it against us both." Yet neither suggested stopping. That evening back at Aubrielle's apartment, they spread documents across the table, piecing clues, the moral weight pressing on Emery as she ignored a call from her lieutenant ordering her to report any contact with the suspended detective. The choice was made. She would protect Aubrielle no matter the cost to her reputation, her future, her sense of self. The library search yielded the break they needed, a mismatched log entry linking Klein to a payment from the cartel remnants. But as they left the building, an unmarked car tailed them, forcing Aubrielle to take evasive turns through Brooklyn traffic. Emery gripped the dash, her training kicking in, but her heart racing for reasons beyond the danger. "Pull over here," she said, directing Aubrielle into an alley. "We lose them on foot." They abandoned the car and ran through side streets, the adrenaline mixing with the growing awareness of each other's presence, Aubrielle's hand finding Emery's to pull her into a doorway as the tail passed. In the tight space their breaths mingled, Emery whispering, "We are in this now, no turning back." Aubrielle nodded, the proximity stirring feelings she had buried since their rivalry began. Back at a safe motel on the outskirts, they reviewed the new evidence, the moral dilemma weighing heavy on Emery, who had always believed in the system, now questioning it to save the woman beside her. Aubrielle paced the small room. Her family had left voicemails demanding she come home and explain herself, the pressure mounting as her mother hinted at arranging a meeting with a family friend, a man who could fix her reputation. "I cannot tell them the truth," Aubrielle said, sinking onto the bed, "not just about the case, but about me, about us, if this leads where I think it might." Emery sat beside her, the bed dipping under their weight, her hand resting on Aubrielle's shoulder. "We do not have to figure that out tonight. But I am here, and I am not leaving." The touch lingered, turning into a gentle hug, the first real contact beyond necessity, their bodies fitting together in a way that felt both terrifying and right. The next day brought a close call when a colleague from narcotics spotted them at a diner and reported back, forcing them to go on the run again, hiding in an abandoned warehouse on the waterfront. There in the dim light, Emery confronted her own betrayal of the badge. I swore an oath. But watching you get destroyed for something you did not do broke something in me. Aubrielle turned to her, the distance closing until their foreheads touched. I never hated you, not really. I admired your strength even when we fought. The moment stretched, emotions raw from the chase and the revelations, until Emery pulled back. We cannot afford distractions, but the pull is there. They spent the night planning their next move, sharing stories of past cases, the societal stares they both endured as women in uniform, the prejudice that made every promotion a battle. Aubrielle's phone lit up with another family call. She silenced it, the rejection already stinging in her mind. The colleague's betrayal came to a head when Klein's men ambushed them at the warehouse, gunshots echoing as Aubrielle and Emery returned fire from behind crates. The action fast and decisive, Aubrielle shielding Emery with her body, taking a graze to the arm. They escaped into the night, Emery driving while Aubrielle pressed a cloth to the wound, the pain sharpening her resolve. At a new hideout in Queens, Emery cleaned the injury, her hand steady, but her voice shaking. You saved me back there after all the times I doubted you. Aubrielle caught her wrist, pulling her closer. We are saving each other now, and the price is worth it. The care turned tender, Emery's fingers lingering on Aubrielle's skin, the air thick with unspoken feelings. Family pressure exploded when Aubrielle's mother showed up unannounced at her old address, traced through a friend, forcing Aubrielle to hide nearby and listen to the tirade about bringing shame on the family, the suspension scene as proof she was on the wrong path. Emery waited with her afterward, holding her as tears finally fell. I cannot lose them, but I cannot lose myself either. Emery shared her own call from her captain, a final warning to cut ties or face suspension herself, the moral crisis peaking as she chose to stay. They uncovered more on Klein, the corruption running deeper to a deputy inspector, the evidence mounting, but the danger closer. In a quiet moment on the fire escape overlooking the city, they shared their first real kiss, tentative and full of the weight of their choices, the romance blooming amid the chaos, not as escape, but as strength. The climax built as they confronted Klein in a sting operation using the gathered proof, but the deputy inspector turned the tables, revealing a setup that implicated Emery's old partner in the original tampering, forcing a brutal choice. Aubrielle stood ready to turn herself in to save Emery, but Emery refused. No, we finish this together, even if it costs us everything. The confrontation in an empty parking garage involved tense negotiations, physical struggle as backup arrived, the betrayal complete when the colleague who leaked their location fired a warning shot. They escaped with the files, but both now face formal charges, the price of their defiance clear in the lost trust and impending hearings. Aubrielle's family cut contact, the final rejection landing like a blow, while Emery's superiors stripped her overtime and threatened her shield, the sacrifices piling up. In the aftermath, hiding in a friend's cabin upstate, they processed the trauma, Aubrielle questioning if her push for justice had been worth the ruin, Emery wrestling with the line she crossed for love. Their bond deepened through the pain, hands intertwined as they promised to face the hearings side by side, the awakening complete. They were no longer rivals, but partners in every sense. The hearings dragged on for weeks, evidence finally clearing Aubrielle of tampering, though the civilian death remained a scar, and Emery received a formal reprimand. Her career stalled, but intact. They stood outside the courthouse, the city buzzing around them as Aubrielle turned to Emery, the woman who had risked it all. We lost friends, status, parts of our families, but we gained this, she said, pulling her into an embrace under the afternoon sun. Emery smiled, the first genuine one in months. The cost had been high, but the freedom to be themselves in the open felt like rebirth. They walked away together, hand in hand, the drama behind them, but the lessons etched deep. Family rifts might heal with time, the department would watch them closer, but their choice to protect each other had reshaped their worlds. In the end, after everything they lost and gained, was Emery right to defy everything for Aubrielle? Or did their controversial choices prove that love can never truly justify breaking the rules that hold society together?